Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Business First Bank, with locations throughout the state, including 11 offices in the Baton Rouge area, providing personal and commercial banking, treasury management, and wealth solution services to help clients succeed. Business First Bank. Banking with greater momentum. At b1bank.com.
From Mansurs On The Boulevard, we're out to lunch with Stephanie Regal. Stephanie Regal is a broadcaster and editor of Baton Rouge Business Report. It's business Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Regal. Welcome to Out to Lunch. You could say we're sports crazy in South Louisiana, potentially more so than anywhere else in the country, and with good reason. More professional athletes come out of Louisiana per capita than any other state in the U.S. Maybe it's our famous cuisine or the chemicals in our water. Whatever the reason, our sports-obsessed culture is also spawning a growing number of sports-related businesses. It's taken us a while to capitalize on one of our greatest resources, but that's starting to change. My first guest today is helping to lead the charge and grow the business of sports in Louisiana, and particularly the Capital Region. He is Eric Engmann, Vice President and CEO-elect of the Baton Rouge Area Sports Foundation. For more than 2 decades now, the Sports Foundation has worked to bring sporting events to Baton Rouge and has worked with local, regional, and national sports events coordinators in planning and executing their events here. Eric has been with the foundation since 2007 and has master's degrees both in sports administration and business administration. He was promoted to executive vice president in 2012 and later this year will take over the foundation from longtime CEO Jerry Stovall. Eric, lots to talk about. Welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you.
And my next guest is a sports entrepreneur of sorts and also a veteran guest of Out to Lunch. He is Joseph Tucker, whose company Hydra Guard and the hydrating mouth guard it makes was featured in one of our first episodes in Out to Lunch. In the 15 months since then, Joseph has launched a second product, Hydraguard Recharge. It's a sports drink that has many times more electrolytes than Gatorade and other leading sports drinks with just a fraction of the sugar. It just hit store shelves and already orders are pouring in. Joseph, it is the coolest story, and we can't wait to hear about it. Welcome back to Out to Lunch.
Thank you.
Well, Eric, let's start with you. When we talk about sports in Baton Rouge, everybody immediately thinks LSU football because that dominates the conversation. But there's so much more.
Absolutely. We see just so much other sports activity in our city at all levels, from youth to adults and male, female, across the board. When we talk about sports, the moniker we use is, from archery to wrestling. That's W is about as far down the line as we get, but we do anything and everything in between with, young kids who are 6, 7 years old, all the way up to, we're going to have a master's track meet this summer. We'll have 85, 90, 95-year-old athletes,
Wow.
running track and field. So, a lot of this flies under the radar. A lot of it is not things
Absolutely.
that people necessarily see in the newspaper or would understand unless they're involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is big business, and there are big numbers that go behind it.
So what events have y'all helped to attract here over the years?
Well, so some of the ones that people would recognize are obviously some of the bigger bowling tournaments, the 2005 Open Championships, the 2012 Open Championships. Will have women bowlers next summer in 2017. We've hosted National Senior Games here in Baton Rouge a number of times. We've hosted some Junior Olympic track and field meets here that are national scope, 6, 7, 8,000 athlete events. The last, I'd say the last 5, 6 years, we've hosted what we call a Region 3 soccer tournament twice, once in 2010, once in 2014. And those are monster events for us.
Were these events coming here before the foundation existed?
Well,
20 years ago?
The genesis of the Sports Foundation came out of a really big year for Baton Rouge sports in 1993. So at that time, Tommy McHugh was the mayor, and we hosted USA Track and Field Junior Olympics. We hosted the National Sports Festival, and we hosted women bowling, all in that one year. And I think at that point, some of the city leadership started looking around and saying, what can we do? Can we do this all the time? Why is this just happening one time? And so that's where, Coach Stovall got involved and was brought in from, he was the athletic director of Louisiana Tech at the time, came down, and the Sports Foundation began in June of 1994.
Okay.
And so at that time, the Sports Commission concept was in its infancy nationwide. But we were actually one of the first cities to have a standalone sports foundation that wasn't necessarily, we worked very closely with Visit Baton Rouge, but wasn't inside of a traditional Convention and Visitors Bureau.
And then, so what is your model? I mean, do you all subsist on donations and
So
grants, and
it's
you
a
use that to try to?
It's a three-headed monster of sorts. So Visit Baton Rouge is our biggest partner. They provide funding for us. The state of Louisiana provides some funding for us through the hotel motel tax, and then we self-generate about a third as well. So it's a three-legged stool type of setup.
And how do you spend that money in the effort to attract sporting events?
Right. So our job is to coordinate with these national governing bodies, utilizing our local contacts, utilizing our local resources to go out and make contact with these different groups, develop these relationships over time, and then bring these events back to the city. So whether it's working with the soccer club here to bring soccer to town, or working with our track and field contacts to do track meets, developing our own events, and that's a big focus for us lately, has been instead of giving a big chunk of change to a national governing body who brings a nice event, can we look at the opportunities to start our own events and have that same impact, but keep the money here in town and not have it go to Colorado Springs or Indianapolis, New York City?
Well, I want to continue this conversation, but Joseph, I got to bring you in here because we're talking about sports and athletes, and your company, was created to help athletes perform better. You came up with this idea for a hydrating mouth guard, and when we last spoke, you were getting it into LSU, into some of the stores, and you were even talking to NFL teams. And now, fast forward, you have a sports drink. How did this happen in such a relative short amount of time?
So, the idea is, the company was founded on the hydrating mouth guard. That took off, and it's doing its thing right now. We're currently offered in about 5 states.
Really?
Yes. It started off in the football industry, and then as what our product is differentiates than any other mouth guard on the current market is that ours offers a different application, such as that I can put water, or I can put, say, our new sports drink in our hydrating mouth guard now. It offers an application not only for football, for when athletes are on that 4th, that 5th, that 6th push, where we have a heavy presence is in Texas. The Texas heat, the southern regions,
Sure.
Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, the southern states where, it's very hot down here. They need a little extra splash of liquid while they're out there on the field. That took off. It's doing its thing. We have athletes in baseball. I didn't think baseball would be a market. We have athletes in baseball that are currently using it. Softball, lacrosse. We're in New Jersey with hockey.
Wow.
We have marathon runners, which is the original idea of where this idea kind of came off of. And then I had, year and a half later, I had the LSU IP department. They contacted me and
IP?
said, "Yeah,
What is that?
Intellectual property department."
Okay, right.
They contacted me and said, "Yeah, hey, Joseph, listen, we know about the hydrating mouth guard and what you're currently doing with that. Would you be interested in this technology that we have?"
So they reached out to you.
Correct.
Interesting.
And so I reached back out to Dirk and those guys in the IP department. We got together, and I looked at the technology. I said, this is very interesting. What can we do with this?
Okay, so let's back up. So this technology for a magical sports drink that has many times more electrolytes than Gatorade and way less sugar.
Yes.
I mean, that was basically the technology you're talking about.
That is correct. So this technology is called, it was founded by LSU. They found a new application, and what this technology does is that masks the taste of electrolytes.
Okay.
And so typically what you see with current sports drinks on the market, they'll advertise or increase their electrolytes. But typically when they do that, something else goes up with it, and that's typically sugar, and that's to mask the taste of the electrolytes.
It's not for a quick burst of energy. It's to hide the flavor. you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And so some of the leading brands that we have currently on the market, you're looking at 20 to 30 grams, 34, 36 grams of sugar.
That's killer.
Correct. And the thing is, though, is most of these people that are having these sports drinks, it's me. I might get an hour of workout a day. That's not enough to justify 34
Right.
grams of sugar.
Right.
Their daily intake is 20.
Yeah.
The sad thing is that also the kids are the ones that are intaking all of these sugars, which is all kinds of research, and we'll get into all that right now about the sugars and the consumption for their children. But is where we come into play is that we offer a special product because of that technology, and we're able to increase those electrolytes without adding hardly any of those sugars at all.
And it tastes good. It sure looks pretty.
Yes. So there was three things whenever I was developing this product. One, we had to create a premium product that could match up and surpass anything that's currently on the market. Two, it had to be competitively priced. I've been in the manufacturing industry, distribution, across the nation, and that's something I know how to do relatively pretty quickly. Did that, so premium product, price, and three is ultimate, the taste test. It has to taste good. Nobody's going to buy it if it doesn't taste good, right? And so those are the three the three marks that we had to check on, the three boxes that we had to check off on before we launched it. We got it to that point and then released it. But where we developed this product originally was at the LSU Ag Center.
Okay.
So it wasn't just me that came up overnight with this formulation. The LSU Ag Center and their scientists, Marvin, Ashley, and also Louise and Gay over there at the food incubator, LSU food incubator.
Okay. Now it seems like the potential market for this is huge because
Correct.
there's so many recreational users. I mean, people drink sports drinks all the time.
Yes. The market
As opposed to like a mouth guard, for
Yeah.
instance, it would only be a team sports person.
Correct. So the mouth guard is a much smaller market.
Yeah.
The beverage industry, obviously, it's a huge, multi-billion-dollar, industry, and so is what we have. There's, you drive down the road, you're going to see convenience stores, you're going to see nutrition companies, you're going to have gyms. Every place has some type of health product in it, and that's on market. And as of yesterday, we hit about 110 locations.
In Louisiana only, or out of state as well?
In Louisiana. Rouse's will bring us out of state.
Wow.
Yes.
So you've already signed a deal with Rouse's.
We have an agreement with Rouse's. We're lining up our distributors to get our product to their locations.
So you have a distributor. That was my other question. What are your plans for marketing and distribution?
Our marketing distribution, we plan on using the kind of model like Marucci did, a lot like with their ambassadors for the company, and which we're seeking out right now. We have roughly about 67 NFL, MLB, and hockey players right now that we plan on bringing onto our team, and then help marketing that through social influencers as well. Also is going into the local community, being a part of organizations, being part of these youth programs, seeing how we can plug in with each other. One is the Louisiana Marathon that we plan on being a part of, the Rock and Roll Marathon. Different 5Ks that we plan on being at, just to kind of, spread the awareness of our product and help, bring our product to, the kids, and the adults in our community.
It's difficult to get shelf space, anytime when you have a new product.
Correct.
How does that work?
Well, the obvious monsters are Coca-Cola and Pepsi. It's Powerade and Gatorade.
Right.
So I believe that Powerade owns roughly about 80% of the market. Pepsi is 15%, and 5% there for people like startups like us to come in and disrupt. So as what we do, there is a little bit of room for us to come in at, and so where we have our success is starting in our community, saying, hey, look, Rouse's, Robert's, look, you guys are local, we're local. Get behind us, we'll grow with you guys, and a lot of these companies, Louisiana is a very, and especially Baton Rouge, is a very great place to have launch a company, There are many local companies in here that started off the exact same way that I
Yeah.
did, and they're ready to get behind you. And they're saying, yes, absolutely. You're from Baton Rouge. You're an entrepreneur. You're starting your company out. Come in, we'll give you a shot. And then that's up to us to come in and prove ourselves.
Sure. Was it difficult I mean, LSU approached you, so you were able to license the technology from the inventor. They didn't want to hold on to it? I mean,
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
licensing is still attached to them.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
The license, they still own
Okay.
that technology. I just have exclusive rights to
To
it.
use it,
To
in
use
other
it. Yeah.
words.
I'm the only one that can use this product.
Fantastic. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. My guests are Joseph Tucker of Hydra Guard and Eric Engmann of the Baton Rouge Area Sports Foundation. Eric, are there opportunities for the Sports Foundation to partner, for instance, with Joseph?
Certainly, the market is billions and billions of dollars, international, in fact, in scope. But locally, I think there's enough organizations out there who need support, who are looking for these things to fill gaps in either at the event production level or at the day-to-day, a track club, the YMCA, all of these organizations that I think you can tap in, especially people who are very, so the Y is very locally based, you know, so that would be a good tie-in. But absolutely, there's certainly ways to get the product into the hands of the consumer, and I imagine that's what you guys want, to at least sample, get an idea of what it is, and then add to that and start looking for it on shelves of retailers.
Y'all are making this product at the food incubator right now. At some point, I guess you max out, and you need to go to bigger production facilities.
We
huh?
have maxed out.
You have already?
Yeah, we have already. We have already maxed out. We're now bringing it into a co-packer in Slidell, which we have already maxed out there.
Wow.
Before we even gone into the production with them on a daily basis. So we've hit roughly right now. We've been at these different events, taste testing, and we're roughly about we've hit about 10,500 bottles on back order of what we have right now. So and
How are you going to fill it? Where are you going to go do this?
BEC beverage co-packer out of Slidell.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's our co-packer who we use. And then when we do that, then we'll be distributing it to our consumers, our online orders, and things of that nature.
And I guess you're already looking for another place to enable you to scale up?
Yes, absolutely. Being in the manufacturing world, especially for the mouth guard, I've learned a lot of lessons. And so I always have, one or two other manufacturers lined up right now, and so we're ready to go. So if anything were to happen with, say, the flood, okay,
Right.
and then it flooded out our co-packer there in Slidell. Well, we have another co-packer that we can say, all right, look, you have to go. We need to schedule this in 3 days, get this production going, and get these units shipped out.
That's great.
So it's just lining everything up, but also having a plan B to fall back on, and that's something that we've been fairly pretty good at. So
That's
far.
great.
Yeah.
Do y'all think that we're more sports obsessed here in Baton Rouge or South Louisiana than elsewhere? Just only SEC states or?
I've lived all over the country. I think we have. I think college towns particularly have, especially they don't have pro teams, have a really strong affiliation to sport at the high school level and at the college level. But at the same time, I lived in Cincinnati, I've lived in Lexington, Kentucky, I've lived in Madison, Wisconsin. There's no, Madison was insane for all things Badgers, all
Okay.
things high school sports. So I think we have a very, it's one of these, and we talk about it, I teach some at LSU. Live sports events are about the only thing that's a surprise anymore in entertainment. So if you show up at a game, you just never know what you're going to see, and I think that's the appeal of sports at this point.
That's a great point. That really is. How do you think we can leverage our homegrown talent here, to make sports more of an economic development engine?
In terms of our facilities, or just in terms of our
In terms of
personalities?
Everything, yeah.
Everything?
Or even companies that make sports-related products. Or companies like Bob Munson's, sports consulting business that is
Right.
now located here.
I think we certainly have a lot of athletes who've come through here, so leveraging those personalities and having those folks tell our story outside of the market. So when they are out, and I think that's actually, we've seen a lot of that in the last decade or so, as a lot of our LSU athletes end up in professional sports. Then they go beyond that and end up in media, or end up, if it's Anthony McFarland, who's on the SEC network now, or Ryan Clark, who's a big part of ESPN now. Those are all South Louisiana guys. I mean, and so I think you're starting to see in the media, at least, a lot more of these guys who are, have this South Louisiana bend to their personality, or bend to their analysis. They're out front and center.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting to see on the football side. We're starting to see a little bit on the baseball side. I think there's a ton of potential here. I think it's important for people to realize how big the industry is, not just here locally with our teams and so forth, but just big picture. That there's so much going on in media, in manufacturing, and what Marucci's been able to do is incredible. That's probably maybe the biggest story sports-wise for us, from a business standpoint, is where they go from, taking that brand, the bat brand and the baseball brand. Does that end up becoming something that looks like Under Armour? Is that something that maybe becomes something that looks like Nike at some point?
Mm-hmm.
So, where do they go from here is a huge question.
You would hope. Well, let's switch gears for a moment and do a segment that we call the brother-in-law question. I don't know if either of you has a brother-in-law, but for the purposes of this conversation, let's pretend like you do.
I do.
So Eric, your brother-in-law comes to you and says he wants to become a professional athlete. What do you advise, assuming that he's got some talent?
Well, I was about to say, that's the first question, is can you play? No, I don't think there's anybody who I think there's a lot of obviously very talented individuals who end up in professional athletics, but there's so many things that have to go right for you that there's hardly any advice other than working really, really hard and getting a lot of breaks. The odds are stacked against you from day one, and you can run the statistics on who ends up being in professional athletics, but it's so minuscule. I'd advise them to stay in school,
else, right?
get a background, and then if all the chips
Right.
fall where they may, then you'll have an awesome opportunity. But
Good advice. Joseph, let's say your brother-in-law comes to you and says he has a great idea for a new product that's not going to compete with yours, and he wants to get into business. What advice do you have for budding entrepreneurs, somebody with that great idea like you had?
Yeah, immediate. I tell everybody that comes to me and says, hey Joe, I have an idea. How do I get started? My first thing that I say is, one, you have to believe in yourself. Two, be all in with your product. Three, trust the process and be patient. Mm-hmm.
How long have you been working on the Hydra Guard products? How many years has it been now since you got the idea for the mouth guard?
Going on five and a half years now.
5.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of whenever I started this product, like other many entrepreneurs and inventors, you think of, I have this idea, okay, but I don't know how to get started, so I'm not going to do it, or I don't know anybody else that's an inventor, so where do I go to from here? As long as, I started this in researching on Google. That's all I had.
Really?
Yeah, I had Google and Barnes & Noble, and that's where I started. I went to school for business finance. I started working for a Fortune 500 company. I thought my dreams were Wall Street. The company and the product consumed me of who I was. I became Hydra Guard, which was what was needed, and then I ultimately was able to make that jump. But looking back, hard work, just go to Google, call me. I'm always a guy and open to lend some advice to whoever may need it.
That's very generous of you. What do y'all think we need more of here in Louisiana to make this a better place to do business for sports entrepreneurs and sports organizations?
excellent. Where do you start?
Yeah. I think it's just a lot of having more events. Having more events, having like a play. Some of these the cost, not the coliseums, but some of these parks to where a little bit more marketing behind it, I guess, and pumping that out to local businesses and saying, hey, look, be a part of this, get more vendors that Hydra Guard involved. And, I can guarantee you that I would tell more companies of, look, this is what we have going on. You should look into this, bringing that park, more fees and things of that nature and help growing their parks like, I guess, Breck, bringing some of the talent over there. There's more events, I think, more organized events going on. I know there's a lot of 5Ks
A lot of those, and growing number of half marathons too.
Yeah, a lot of runs. Maybe baseball tournaments, softball tournaments, and things of that nature, which I know Baton Rouge is pretty
I
big
think
on.
diversity in events is something we're looking at closely and trying to find holes in the market. Where are we not meeting the needs? Where are we? This is something we're actually going to try to work on in 2017. But where are our holes from a facility standpoint? Like, do we have enough quadrilinear fields that we can do soccer on? Maybe we do. But we need to study it and look at it really closely to see what are all the things that we need as a community or we need as a region in order to host some of these bigger events and play in a bigger sandbox, if you will, to get some of these bigger events to the city or start events that we haven't been able to do previously. How do we work with our local communities to make kind of informal recreation easier? Like, how can I get on my bike and ride from Baton Rouge to St. Francisville and not get hit by a logging truck?
Oh yeah,
is this possible?
That would be so nice if you could figure that one out.
Right. How do we create some of these situations for people who either want to train for events or just go on a Saturday morning and have a 30-mile bike ride? Is that possible? So how do we work on those projects? I think this Capital Pathways project has been very good for Breck, interconnecting the city through trails and through paths that are not next to a road, and we're hopeful that continues to progress and get to where they want it to be eventually. But those types of things, I think, improve quality of life, but also give us some alternate facilities to do some fun things and do some things that people can do informally, and it doesn't have to be Eric shutting down a road somewhere so that we can do a half marathon or do a road race.
I'm glad to know y'all are working on that. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we're out of time already, but it's great to hear how y'all are building successful organizations and companies based around sports, which is such a passion here in Louisiana. And we look forward to great things coming out of the Sports Foundation and, of course, out of Hydra Guard. So thanks for joining me today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you for having me.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Eric Engmann of the Baton Rouge Area Sports Foundation and Joseph Tucker, founder of Hydra Guard. You can find out more about the Sports Foundation and Hydra Guard by following the links on our website. It's batonrouge.la and wrkf.org. Today's show is recorded live over lunch at Mansurs On The Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansurs is open for lunch daily from 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Peter Raschuti. And our Baton Rouge business consultants are Charlie D'Agostino and Ann Edelman. You can see photos from this show on itsbatonrouge.la and on our Facebook page. These photos are taken by Ken Stewart. All the music on Out to Lunch is composed and performed by Mitchell Foreman. You can find more of Mitchell's music wherever great jazz is streamed and sold and at mitchellforeman.com. You can get this show as a podcast, you can listen to past shows, and you can keep up with us on all kinds of social media by going to our websites, it's batonrouge.la and wrkf.org. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for its batonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. I'm Stephanie Riegel. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Mansurs for more business Baton Rouge style on Out to Lunch.
Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Business First Bank, with locations throughout the state, including 11 offices in the Baton Rouge area, providing personal and commercial banking, treasury management, and wealth solution services to help clients succeed. Business First Bank, banking with greater momentum at b1bank.com.